All right, so today we're diving into something, pretty crucial, safe drinking water. But specifically, we're going to be going deep on the World Health Organization's 2024 guidelines for, get this, drinking water quality, small water supplies. Catchy.
I know, right? GDWQ, small water supplies.
Yeah, definitely shorter.
Yeah, much easier.
But you're right, this is about way more than just, a long title.
Right.
These guidelines, they impact, billions of people who rely on what the WHO calls small water supplies.
So not just the massive treatment plants and pipelines.
Right.
They picture in big cities.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about in a rural village,
Okay.
a rainwater harvesting system on like a remote island, even those little water kiosks
Yeah.
you see popping up in some urban areas, those are small water supplies.
Interesting.
And they're essential for nearly half the world's population.
Wow, I had no idea it was that many people.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So these guidelines are like fresh off the press, right?
Yeah, they are.
And they're actually updating a 1997 document.
Oh, wow.
But this goes way beyond just like a refresh.
Right.
These new guidelines recognize just how diverse these small water supplies are.
Okay.
They even have a whole system for, categorizing them. From single households managing their own well to very sophisticated, professionally run systems serving small towns.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Exactly.
Which makes sense, right?
Right.
A tiny village in the Himalayas facing glacier melt is going to have very different challenges than a community on a small island dealing with saltwater intrusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets interesting, I think, for everyone.
Okay.
Even if you think, hey, I live in a city with perfectly good tap water, this doesn't affect me.
Right. Because what happens with water in one part of the world can end up affecting us all eventually.
Exactly. Think about the food we eat, where it's grown, the water used to irrigate it.
Yeah.
Or how diseases can spread so quickly in our globally connected world.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It is.
Okay, that's a really good point.
Thanks.
So how does the WHO even begin to tackle this massive, complex issue?
Right.
The document mentions these three pillars: regulations, risk management, and surveillance. I gotta admit, surveillance sounds a bit intense.
Okay.
Like something out of a spy movie.
Yeah, I can see why you'd think that.
Yeah.
But don't worry, it's not about, spying on people.
Okay.
Think of it more like a neighborhood watch program,
Okay.
but for water.
Okay.
Just, keeping a watchful eye out for any signs of trouble
Right.
and then working together to address them proactively.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
Good.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of each pillar, let's address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
When we say regulations, are we talking about a mountain of bureaucratic paperwork that's just going to bury these small water suppliers?
That's a fair concern.
Yeah.
But actually, the guidelines, they really emphasize that regulations should be supportive,
Okay.
risk-based, and focused on continuous improvement.
So it's about empowering these suppliers, not overwhelming them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine it like this. Clear guidelines, they act as a roadmap,
Okay.
helping these small water systems understand, what's expected and how to achieve it.
So it's about helping them level up, become more professional in how they manage their water.
Exactly. The guidelines actually use this term professionalization.
Okay.
And it's a key concept here.
Uh-huh.
It recognizes that clear rules, accountability, and the right support can actually help even the smallest suppliers provide safe and reliable water.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So when we talk about these rules,
Right.
what are we actually talking about?
Right. Like, what are the specifics?
What are some of the key things that these regulations focus on?
Well, Chapter 3 gets into the details.
Okay.
But one of the biggest priorities is microbial safety.
Uh-huh.
They highlight a few key parameters
Mhm.
that indicate whether or not the water is safe to drink.
And the most probably recognizable of those is E. coli, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's the one we hear about all the time, even in food safety.
for sure.
You definitely don't want that in your drinking water.
Nope, you don't.
No.
And the guidelines are really clear. Aiming for zero E. coli contamination, that should be the ultimate goal.
Okay.
However, they also recognize that, achieving this for small water supplies, especially in resource-limited settings, can be a huge challenge.
So how do you even test for something like E. coli, especially in like a remote village miles from a lab?
That's where things get really, really innovative. It really is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the guidelines actually emphasize the use of field testing kits.
Okay.
So think about them as like mini portable labs
Oh, wow.
that can be taken directly to the water source.
Okay.
It's about making testing accessible and affordable and,
Yeah.
empowering those on the ground to really take control of their own water safety.
That's incredible. It sounds like these guidelines are really trying to be practical and provide solutions.
Yes.
Not just point out problems.
Totally.
That's really good.
It goes beyond just testing.
Okay.
The guidelines also highlight the importance of, reporting
Yeah.
any water quality issues and having clear protocols for when something goes wrong.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
This transparency.
Yeah.
It's essential for learning, adapting, and ultimately, preventing future outbreaks.
So we've got regulations setting the stage,
Mm-hmm.
but what about this idea of risk management?
Right?
And it sounds like something a lot more proactive than just reacting when things go wrong.
It really is. And this is where water safety plans come into play,
Okay.
or WSPs.
WSSPs. Oh.
Imagine them as a sort of early warning system for your water supply.
I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Less putting out fires, more preventing fires in the first place.
Exactly. And the best part is the guidelines make it surprisingly approachable, even for those small, maybe less technically advanced water suppliers.
Yeah.
They break down the process of developing a WSP into 5 clear steps.
5 steps. That doesn't sound too overwhelming.
No.
But how does this actually translate to real-world action
Right.
for, say, a small village relying on a single spring for their water?
Sure. So one of the most crucial steps is the sanitary inspection. So think of it like giving your entire water system a thorough health checkup.
Okay.
And get this, the WHO, they actually provide pre-made sanitary and inspection packages
Oh, wow.
tailored to common small water supply setups. So they've essentially created this toolkit to identify potential contamination risks.
So they're not just handing these communities a complicated rule book and saying good luck.
Right.
They're providing practical, hands-on support.
Exactly. And these WSPs, they're not meant to be static documents.
Right.
They need to be tailored
Okay.
to each location's unique circumstances. For example, that village relying on a spring.
Yeah.
The WSP would need to consider the risks posed by, let's say, livestock in the area, or potential contamination from, upstream sources.
It makes you realize how interconnected everything is.
It is.
Right. Even something seemingly small
Yeah,
can have this ripple effect on the entire water supply.
absolutely. And those ripples can be positive, too.
Oh, okay.
So let's say that same village implements their WSP. They identify a contamination risk from nearby farming,
Okay.
and then they work with local farmers to implement safer practices.
Okay.
Not only does the village get safer water, but the environment benefits too. So it's a win-win.
I love that.
Yeah.
So these water safety plans are about more than just checking boxes. They're about building this culture of prevention and continuous improvement.
Exactly. And that's why the guidelines really emphasize that it can't just be on the shoulders of these small suppliers to figure it all out alone.
Right.
There needs to be funding and support from governments, NGOs, even the private sector.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone has a role to play.
Okay, so we've covered regulations and this more proactive risk management approach.
Right.
Now let's circle back to surveillance.
Okay.
You compared it to a neighborhood watch program earlier, keeping an eye out for trouble.
Right.
But how does that actually work in practice?
It's all about being proactive,
Yeah.
right? Catching those potential problems early on, and the guidelines, they suggest this multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
One key element is, of course, regular inspections of the water systems themselves, using those handy sanitary inspection packages we talked about earlier.
So making sure those risk assessments are actually being put into practice.
Exactly. But it's more than just, ticking boxes on a checklist.
Right.
The guidelines stress the need for trained inspectors who really understand the unique challenges of small water supplies
Okay.
and can offer practical guidance and advice.
So it's less about playing gotcha and more about working collaboratively to find solutions.
Absolutely. Think of it like a doctor doing a checkup,
Okay.
not a police officer writing a ticket.
Right.
And speaking of health checkups, the other key element of surveillance is regular water quality testing.
Testing for things like E. coli, turbidity, all those parameters we discussed earlier.
Exactly. And remember those field test kits we talked about?
Yes.
They're a game changer, especially for remote areas where getting samples to a lab might be difficult or even impossible.
So we've got the tools to collect the data, but then what? What happens to all that information? Does it just get filed away in some dusty cabinet?
That's where things get really exciting. It really doesn't.
Okay.
It's not enough to just collect the data. We need to analyze it,
Okay.
learn from it,
Right.
and use it to drive improvement, right?
It strikes me that through these first two pillars,
Yeah,
we've gathered a ton of information about these small water supplies.
we have.
From the initial risk assessments to those regular inspections and water quality tests,
Uh-huh.
it seems like the data itself could be incredibly valuable.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. And that's where that third pillar, surveillance, really, really shines. It's not just about collecting data. It's about transforming that data into action,
Okay.
into real improvements in water safety.
So it's about turning data into decisions and decisions into real-world change.
Exactly. Chapter 6 of these guidelines actually dives deep into this idea of making information actionable.
Okay.
For example, let's say your data reveals a cluster of small water supplies in a particular region
Yeah.
that are all struggling with high E. coli levels.
Okay.
Instead of just treating each case in isolation,
Right.
you can use that data to zoom out, look for patterns, and identify the potential root causes.
So maybe it's not just a coincidence, but something like agricultural runoff from a nearby farm impacting multiple water sources in the area.
Exactly. The data helps you connect the dots,
Right.
see the bigger picture, and then find solutions that address the source of the problem, not just the symptoms.
I see.
And it's not just about reacting to existing problems either.
Right.
This data can be so powerful for anticipating future challenges, like, those linked to climate change, for example.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But who's actually tasked with using all this data? Is it just the WHO and government agencies, or does it go deeper than that?
It really goes deeper than that.
Okay.
That's what's so exciting. The guidelines actually emphasize a multifaceted approach to data usage.
Okay.
Local communities, they should have access to information about their own water sources,
Right.
empowering them to advocate for improvements.
Yeah. Yeah.
NGOs can use this data to guide their projects, measure impact. Even researchers can tap into this
Oh, wow.
to develop new technologies and solutions.
So it's about transparency,
Yeah.
collaboration, sharing knowledge to drive collective action.
You got it. And to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
The guidelines, they highlight the need for standardized tools and formats
Mm-hmm.
for data collection and reporting. It's about making sure that everyone's speaking the same language data-wise.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
If you're trying to address a global issue,
Yeah,
everyone needs to be working from the same playbook.
exactly. And there are some incredible tools that are emerging that facilitate this kind of global collaboration.
Oh, okay.
The guidelines mention the Rural Water and Sanitation Information System, which is a digital platform that acts like a central hub for collecting, analyzing, and sharing data on small water supplies worldwide.
So it's like a global dashboard for water safety.
That's a great way to put it. But it's not just about, dry numbers and charts.
Yeah.
The guidelines, they emphasize that this data needs to be presented in ways that are accessible and understandable for everyone, not just scientists and policymakers.
Yeah, sure.
Think about using infographics, interactive maps, even storytelling
Yeah.
to really make the information engaging and meaningful.
That's so crucial. It's
Yeah.
about making sure that the data actually translates into action
Yeah.
at every level.
Exactly, because ultimately these guidelines, as dense and detailed as they may seem, are about more than just, technical specifications. They represent a vision of a world where everyone, everywhere, has access to safe and reliable drinking water.
This entire deep dive has been so eye-opening.
Good.
We really went from feeling, a bit daunted by this massive WHO document
Yeah.
to feeling energized and honestly a bit hopeful.
Good.
It feels like we've unpacked not just the what of these guidelines, but the why, and more importantly, the how they can actually make a difference.
I completely agree, and it's a team effort.
Yeah.
These guidelines, they really show us that we have the knowledge and the tools
Right.
to solve this global water crisis, but it requires all of us, governments, organizations, communities, and individuals working together.
So to anyone listening, feeling inspired, maybe even a little empowered, what's one small step you can take today to be part of the solution?
Yeah, what can they do?
Maybe check out the WHO's website, learn more about your local water sources, or even just start a conversation about the importance of safe water with your friends and family.
Yeah, those are all great ideas.
Even small ripples can create big waves, and that's what this journey is all about.
Absolutely.
Thanks for diving deep with us.